and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought it might be nice if I shared my favorite authors with you guys. Now, my favorite author list is ever-changing, but the authors on it tend to fall into two camps. It's either kind of the auto-buy camp, as in I have read enough and loved enough that I kind of trust that I should give anything that they put out a try. And then the kind of watching camp, as in, you know, I've read and enjoyed some of their books or maybe all of their books, but for some reason they haven't like quite tipped the point of me just automatically trusting that whatever they put out is worth a try. And so those are kind of the authors where I enjoy them, but I do read the premise of the book first before, you know, deciding whether or not I buy a release from them. So, like I said, this list is ever-changing. Currently, I have 12 auto-buy authors on my list and 10 watching authors. And, you know, just because somebody is auto-buy right now doesn't mean that they will be auto-buy forever. I have an author on my auto-buy list who is one bad book away from being bumped down a level, but I will get to that when I get to them. But without further ado, I will start with my auto-buy list first. Some of these authors are very popular and you will be familiar with them. And I'm sorry if that's a bit repetitive for you guys, but just know that, you know, I deeply enjoyed them and that's why they're on here. And then some of these authors you may not have heard of before. So I hope that, you know, doing this might introduce you to something new. Maybe you guys could comment down below and let me know if you have similar feelings or if you have authors that you love that are kind of auto-buy for you that you think I should check out. So my first auto-buy author, and please keep in mind this list is in no particular order, is Miss Abby Jimenez. Now, I will say that her most recent release was not quite my jam, which is very disappointing. Every other book I've read from her, I've rated 4.5 to 5 stars. So rating her recent release 3 stars was not great. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. But Miss Abby Jimenez is a romance author, and I so deeply enjoy her romances. I feel that the characters have very real world problems with very realistic personalities, and the third act conflicts tend to come from like some influence outside of the couple, or if it's like within the couple, it's not miscommunication, which I cannot stand. So at this point, I kind of trust her. I really do. So if you have not read anything by Miss Abby Jimenez, know that she does write interconnected standalones. And you may want to, you don't need to, but you may want to start with the first book in the interconnected standalone in order to get some context for couples when you finally get their story. And then from here, we have Miss Ashley Posten. I have read 2 books from her so far, and both of them ended up being 5-star reads. This is the 7-Year Slip and the Dead Romantics. Both of these books I think are very widely loved and very widely talked about. But I very much enjoy her kind of tendency to include magical realism, and just, I've very much loved her characters. I love the fact that her characters are like quirky without being obnoxious, and just, you know, I will keep trying. I have not read a novel love story, which I know did not receive quite the acclaim that these 2 did. And then I know that Sounds Like Love is coming out soon, and I do have my eyes on that. So Miss Ashley Posten is currently an auto-buy author for me. Next auto-buy author is one that you guys probably aren't familiar with, which is Miss Cinda Williams Chima. She writes YA fantasy with like romantic-y subplots, and I love these books. I adore these books. I kind of dropped off reading in college, and this series in particular is what got me to start reading again. Like, I realized that a lot of people like had their like adult reading awakening with SJM, but nope, that was Cinda Williams Chima for me. I annoyed my boyfriend at the time so much because I would not put these down, and he was like up visiting for the weekend. But these are quartets that are on the same timeline. So this is the first quartet. This is the second quartet. It's the 7 realms and then the shattered realms. If you're interested in these, read the first quartet before the second one. Otherwise, you will ruin everything in the second quartet. But these are excellent. They're very like complex, but at the same time simple. Like, the plot is complex, but it's easy to understand. The magic system, I think, in this world is really, really cool. And the politics are amazing. Really quickly, I will read the back of this book for you, just because I would love for people to read these books. Times are hard in the mountain city of Fellsmarch. Reformed thief Han Alistair will do almost anything to eke out a living for himself, his mother, and his sister Mari. Ironically, the only thing of value he has is something he can't sell. For as long as Han can remember, he's worn thick silver cuffs engraved with runes. They're clearly magicked. As he grows, they grow, and he's never been able to get them off. Han's life gets even harder after he takes a powerful amulet from Micah Bayar, the son of the High Wizard. The amulet once belonged to the Demon King, the wizard who nearly destroyed the world a millennia ago. With a magical piece so powerful at stake, the Bayars will stop at nothing to reclaim it from Han. Meanwhile, Reza Anna Mariana, princess heir of the Fells, so this is like a queendom, has her own battles to fight. Although Reza will become eligible for marriage after her 16th name day, she isn't looking forward to trading in her common sense for a prince with a big castle and a tiny brain. Reza aspires to be like Hanalea, the legendary warrior queen who killed the Demon King and saved the world. But it seems that her mother has other plans for her, plans that include a suitor who goes against everything that the queendom stands before. The Seven Realms will tremble when the lives of Hana and Reza collide in this stunning new page-turner from best-selling author Cinda Williams' Chima. Like I said, so this follows like the parent generation, and this follows the kid generation, which is why you can't read the Shattered Realms without reading the Seven Realms. But I loved these books, and I highly recommend them to anybody who loves fantasy, romance, or romantasy. After that, I have Miss Axie O. This is ASAP or ASAP and XOXO. I adored these books. Every single book I have read from Axie O has been a 5 stars. These 2 books, and then The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I am currently reading The Floating World, so you will get my thoughts on that in probably Wednesday's video. But these are the first 2 books in a series of interconnected standalones, and I think it will be a 4-book series because it is about boy band members of a K-pop idol group. And so far, we've only gotten 2 of the 4 members' romances. But I thoroughly enjoyed these. If you are a K-pop girly, these are the books for you. I loved them. So, and I also like I said, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I think it's a very whimsical take on retelling Korean, Asian legends. And then from there we have Danielle L. Jensen. These are the Fairy Loot copies of The Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen. I adore Danielle L. Jensen. I think that I'm just hooked on everything she writes. I love everything she writes. Granted, I do have right here A Fate Inked in Blood and A Curse Carved in Bone, and they're not my favorites, but they're not my least favorite book she's ever written either. Right now I'm kind of feeling that way about The Twisted Throne, which is the 5th book in this series. The Bridge Kingdom is a series of interconnected duologies. And I loved the first 2 duologies. These 2 follow Lara and Aaron, and then the next 2 follow Lara's brother and the heir to another empire. So just if you are down for betrayal, for badass women, this series, give it a try. I realize that, some people feel that it's a little overhyped. I don't. I loved every single book, like I said, except for The Twisted Throne. And then I enjoyed these. Not my favorite, but I enjoyed them. And then I have Miss Elizabeth Lim. Now, I think that she is much more popular for her Six Crimson Cranes duology. However, I was introduced to her through Spin the Dawn and Unravel the Dusk, and I adored these books. I loved them so much, and I think I got them as birthday gifts. At least the second one for sure. I know this is another one of the few series I ended up reading in college. Like I said, college was not fertile reading ground, at least not for fun. So I so enjoyed these books. Think a cross between maybe Mulan and Project Runway. Our FMC is competing in a tailoring contest to become the tailor for the the new princess marrying into the royal family, and tailors in this world are only supposed to be men. And of course, she gets herself wrapped up into a lot of politics and magic that she did not expect. And then from there, we have Miss Elsie Silver. Miss Elsie Silver kind of fulfills a very specific, like, category of book. For me, like, do I think like they're the most well-written books ever? No, but I thoroughly enjoy them. This is Flawless, of course, the first book in the Chestnut Spring series. I am part of the way through the Gold Rush Ranch series and also part of the way through the Rose Hill series. But I have at least always enjoyed a book. Maybe it's not my favorite. Like, I don't love the last book in this series. I don't love Bo's book. Sorry, Bo. But everything else I've like very thoroughly enjoyed, very thoroughly been entertained. I'm down to give anything she puts out at this point a try. So just know she likes to write small town romances, cowboy romances. Her current series that she's putting out books in, the Rose Hill series, is all about single dads. And I thoroughly enjoy them. They're good. They like kind of, scratch the itch of like a small town cowboy romance sort of situation. And then from there, we have probably my favorite romance author, Miss Liz Tomforde, or Tomforde. I keep hearing it both ways. But this is Rewind It Back. It is her most recent release. It's actually the only physical copy I have from the Windy City series, but the Windy City series is by far my favorite romance series. I mean, obviously my favorite sports romance series, but also just my favorite romance series. I love these. This one follows Rio and his story. He is a hockey player and a teammate of like former MMCs in this world. But I love like just everything about her books. I enjoy the characters. I enjoy the spice. I enjoy the relationships. Just, if you are looking for a sports romance, definitely pick this series up. I do know that most people do prefer like Caught Up to any other book in the series. Maybe Play Along is up there too. Most people don't like Mile High. I enjoyed it, but that's kind of my personal preference. So, maybe look into the tropes of each book if you are kind of hesitant to give her a try. But she's kind of written, Second Chance and Fake Dating and Marriage of Convenience. And so, like, there's kind of something there for everybody to try. We are on to our author who may or may not be losing her auto-buy status, which is Miss SJM. I loved Throne of Glass. This is a Roman Empire series for me, a 6-star series for me. I loved these books. These books were everything. I enjoyed the first 3 books of the ACOTAR series. Did not feel that the novella was really necessary. I kind of understood the point of like trying to transition between like the main female main character in the first 3 books and the main female character in the 5th book or the 4th book or whatever you want to call it, Court of Silver Flames. I kind of understand it. But I didn't feel it was necessary and I didn't really like enjoy the plot. And then I struggled with the Court of Silver Flames. I don't like Nesta. I didn't really feel that Nesta was redeemable and I didn't kind of enjoy the fact that we were trying to redeem her. And I also felt like that book was 800 pages and it probably could have been half the size and accomplished the same thing because I feel like a lot of it was spice scenes and training montages. And like there's only so many of those you can go through while the character is like working through their self-hatred. So there's that. And then the Crescent City series, loved the first book, liked the second book, kind of went WTF to the third book. So at this point, clearly, I very much enjoyed her earlier works because I loved Throne of Glass, loved Throne of Glass, but her most recent releases have just not been my jam. So I'm starting to kind of lose trust that I will enjoy anything that I pick up from her. So that's just my personal opinion. And I'm not like trying to join on an SJM like hate bandwagon or anything like that. She may be an author that at some point I move on from. And then another sports romance author that I deeply enjoy and trust is Stephanie Archer. This is the first book in the Vancouver Storm series. The second book is The Fake Out, and then The Wingman, and then Gloves Off is coming out. My copy is currently shipping, which I'm super excited about. But these are a series of interconnected standalones following hockey players on the fictional, dear God, that should not have been so hard, the fictional team of Vancouver Storm. So I enjoy these. They're a spicy, fun, easy, fast read, and kind of like they're almost up there with the Windy City series, and kind of similar about like each book follows a different trope. So, maybe look into them if you are curious and pick the one that you think you will like the tropes the most. But I've enjoyed every single one. I mean, The Wingman less so than Behind the Net and The Fake Out. And, but I am very, very excited about Gloves Off. So that's where I stand with Miss Stephanie Archer. And then here we are. We are at my favorite author of all time. And that is Tamora Pierce. Now, she has not released anything in quite some time. She has experienced quite a few health issues, but if anybody kind of is familiar, this is the Linus Quartet. This is the Illumicrate copies of the series, which I think are just absolutely beautiful, and I hope that these were successful enough that Illumicrate decides at some point to do the rest of the quartets from Tamora Pierce. But Tamora Pierce was the foundation of my reading besides Harry Potter. This is the author that kind of drew me in and never left. If you can tell, I have a whole little cubicle over here with all of her books. These are probably between this duology and the Immortals Quartet, which follows Dane the Wild Mage. Those are probably my two favorites. I loved Alana also, and I loved Kel. And then there's the whole Circle Opens. She has two whole universes where she has written a dozen books in each. And if you are looking for female characters who have a spine, who stand up for what they feel is right, she kind of formed the archetype in my head of what a perfect FMC should be. And I love all of her books. They are kind of the ones, there's the Tortall universe, which is the Trickster's Duet, which is Alana the Lioness, which is Dane the Wild Mage, which is Lady Kelladry, and Numair. And then there is the Circle Opens, or the circle that follows oh goodness me, Briar, Triss, Sandry, and Daja. Loved those books. I think the Will of the Empress is one of my favorite books ever. Don't pick that book up without having read the initial two quartets, because you will lack so much context that you kind of need to understand the characters and their actions. But Tamora Pierce, I will read anything that one puts out, really anything. I love those books. And like I said, I'm hoping that Illumicrate does more special editions of her books, because I love those. But those are kind of my dozen auto-buy authors. Now we are into kind of the watching category. First author in that category is actually Miss Allie Hazelwood. I enjoy Miss Allie Hazelwood's writing. I very much do. But there are some books from her that I won't pick up. I don't think I will like Not in Love. I don't think I'll like Bride. So there are just some books of hers where the premise is just uninteresting enough that her writing does not induce me to try it anyway. From there, we have B.K. Borison. This is the first book in the Lovelight Farm series. This is kind of the winter edition, and then there are 3 more books in this series that each follow a season. And then she has recently put out the first book in the Heartstrings series, which is First Time Caller. And I've enjoyed everything that I have read by B.K. Borison. The issue is I don't love her books. I enjoy her books. I am drawn in by her books. I like her writing style, but I don't think I've ever given one of her books 5 stars. I think they've all been 4 or 4.5. I could be wrong. I might have given this 5 stars when I first read it, but upon reflection, I think it's a solidly 4-star read. And I kind of feel that way about everything she puts out. So I enjoy her books. They're just not loves for me. But, you know, I think she writes very fun, warm hugs of romances. Does that sentence make sense? I think she writes romances that are fun and kind of give warm hug vibes. That makes more sense. Okay, I tried. Then we have Miss Carissa Broadbent. This is the first book in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I am so glad that I acquired these books before she transitioned to the traditionally published covers. These are the indie published covers. Not a fan of the new covers, but she likes them, so, you know, good on her. But this is kind of the same thing as BK Borison, where I very much enjoyed the War of Lost Hearts, and then I'm not holding her more popular series because I only physically have the Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. But obviously she also wrote Crowns of Nyaxia, and it's kind of the same thing I experienced with BK Borison, which is I very much enjoyed everything I've read from her so far, but nothing has actually been a 5-star. Like everything's been a 4, 3.5, 4, 4.5, somewhere in there. So like she's on my radar, but I kind of tend to approach, you know, not with no enthusiasm, but like not like, oh my God, I can't wait to get my hands on this kind of thing. And then another author, which is Christopher Paolini. He obviously wrote the Inheritance Cycle. This was a childhood staple series for me. I loved these books. I was so excited when he published Murtagh, and we're supposedly getting more books in the Allegasia universe. But the thing is, he writes outside of, you know, this world, and I have not tried anything outside of this world from him. And so I can't say for sure that he's an auto-buy author, but I will tell you, I will buy anything that he writes in this universe. And, you know, if you love dragons and slow burn romances, slow burn plots, there's not even really a slow burn romance in here because it doesn't, you know, if you're familiar with how this ends and you kind of know what I'm saying, it's not really, but I enjoyed it. Like you know, who doesn't love a sassy dragon who is also a freaking badass? And, you know, a really complex and cool magical system and a world where you have elves and dwarves and, you know, humans and just Urgles and everybody, you know. So I loved this book. I think that it's really for all ages. And I think that if you haven't read it and you're interested in it, you should absolutely read these. And then we have Miss Faizal. Faizal? Yeah. Pardon me if I pronounce her last name wrong, but she obviously wrote the We Hunt the Flame duology, and then she also has a Tempest of Tea. So the reason she's kind of on the watching and not auto-buy is because I loved this duology and I enjoyed A Tempest of Tea. And that's only 3 books that I read from her, so I feel like we haven't reached quite the volume I need to declare her an auto-buy author. But these are great. These are fun. This is a good time. I will say, if you are interested in these, maybe pick them up via audiobook. I loved the audiobook so very much. And also, whoever decided that this book needed a step back, which is what this thing is, jail time. I hate these. This is stupid. This gets folded and wrecked and whatever. But I do otherwise like really enjoy the cover, and I think the spines are really cool. But just, you know, jail time for the step back. That's just bad. But her as an author, I very much enjoy kind of like her magic systems, and the FMC in this world I really enjoyed. Kind of same thing with Tempest of Tea. I like the kind of the families that people tend to find and build for themselves. Just, you know, it's just a fun time. So if you're kind of interested in worlds of magic and jinn and ancient curses, try it out. So this next author I have highly complicated feelings about. And I've talked about this in like other videos, so I'm going to try and keep this succinct and as speedy as possible. But that is Miss Melissa K. Roehrich. This is Lady of Darkness, which is the first book in the Lady of Darkness series. I loved this series. This is another 6-star Roman Empire will forever be burned into my brain series. I love this. I just chef's kiss. Loved these books. I do not love the Legacy series. Granted, I've only read one book and 10% of the next book. But there's a dichotomy here. Love this series. The Legacy series made me want to throw something. And really that's because of the MMC in that world. So otherwise she would be an auto-buy author for me. But the fact that she's written one series that I adored and one series that made me want to break something is kind of why she is on the watching list. But she tends to write highly complex worlds and really interesting romanticities. And just, I thoroughly enjoyed these. So give this series a try, or give the other series a try, because I know that a lot of people love the Legacy series more than they love Lady of Darkness. A lot of people feel like this is like too close to Throne of Glass. I don't feel that way, but that's just me personally. So, take it with a grain of salt. But Mosaic Roehrich, thank you for giving me this series. Don't love your other series, but will continue to read it in the hopes that I feel less like destroying something by the end. So, Legacy series, not high on my priority list right now, but will finish reading eventually in the hopes that the things that pissed me off so much about the first book kind of resolve themselves, so to speak. And then we have Sabaa Tahir, who wrote An Ember in the Ashes. This book series made me cry by the end. I know when I finished it in a vlog, I was like, I'm not crying. I cried. I definitely cried. I was a liar in that video. But the reason she's on the watching and not on the auto-buy is just because I haven't read enough from her. I have obviously read the Ember Quartet, but she has a new book out called The Air, or just Air, sorry, not The Air, which I am very much interested in reading, but I feel like I can't say that I trust an author off of a singular series. But if you enjoy, I would say this is a more plot-focused fantasy with a romance subplot. But either way, I just enjoyed how the world just expanded from the first book. We come to find out that our main characters in the series are embroiled in a very ancient struggle, and it's just I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the fact that our FMC isn't some trained assassin warrior, but she's still kind of a badass. She still has a spine, still stands up for what she believes in. Kind of that Tamora Pierce blueprint where they don't necessarily need to be, a fighter physically, but they need to be a fighter mentally. And that's kind of what I look for in my FMCs. And this book and this series just delivered. So I will be watching anything that this author puts out from here on out. From there, I have Sue Lynn Tan. This is Immortal, but I got to know her initially through the Daughter of the Moon Goddess and the Heart of the Sun Warrior. This book ended up being 5 stars. That duology was kind of a solidly 4-star read for me. I've enjoyed her books, but it's kind of another one of those where I feel like I haven't read enough from her for her to be an auto-buy author. Also, what kind of told me that she's not an auto-buy author, just a watching author for me, is because her upcoming release, Never After, is a Cinderella-inspired story. And I'm so kind of fed up with fairy tale retellings at the moment that I am very hesitant to pick that up, which means that her pull as an author on me is not strong enough to overcome that hurdle, which indicates that she's not quite auto-buy yet. But I think 1 or 2 more excellent books from her and I will get there. But she tells really wonderful, Asian, legend inspired kind of tales. And just, I thoroughly have enjoyed everything she has put out. And then from there, this is a very recently found author for me. And this is our last author for this video. And that is Travis Baldree. Now, this is kind of an audacious pick for me because this is the only book of his I have read so far. But I loved this. And so I have faith that I will like Bookshots and Bone Dust. And I'm chomping at the bit to get my hands on Brigands and Bread Knives. Bread Knives and Brigands is he's got an upcoming release in this kind of world. So he has written a lot of cozy fantasies, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So, if you are interested in giving the genre a shot, I would definitely say pick this up. I feel like he is not an overhyped author whatsoever. And, this was just, I thought I didn't like cozy fantasy, and he changed my mind. And so that's why he's on this list. But those are kind of the authors that are currently on my radar, either as an auto buy or as I'm keeping my eye on them. But hopefully you met some new authors in this stack, or, you and I have similar tastes and we can talk below about, all the books that you have loved from these authors. But if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to stick around and get more videos from me in the future, please subscribe. Either way, I appreciate you joining me. Bye!